Welcome to today's episode of the Group X podcast. I'm your host, Tony Zanato, and if you haven't yet done so, hit that follow button so you never miss another episode. Today, I'll be talking to Iain Hennessy, team coach for RPM and a current trainer and presenter for Les Mills Asia Pacific. We delve into evolution of programs, how they have evolved since the early 2000s, learning choreography, different ways of learning and the realisation that there is no right or wrong way, and training versus presenting. Does he have a favourite? So grab your favourite beverage, sit back and enjoy the show. Iain, thank you so much for coming on the show and having a chat with me, mate. I greatly appreciate you spending some time with me.
Thanks for having me, Tony. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Hey, mate.
I was doing a bit of air guitar in that intro too.
Love that. Thank you. Hey, I want you to tell us where your journey started. How did you get into the fitness industry?
Okay. So I guess it's interesting. I talk to a lot of people and they will often tell you the story about how they were sporty kids, and it sort of led through to wanting to be work in the sporting industry or fitness industry or whatever it was later down the track. But I was an active kid. I did a lot of sport. I was involved in pretty much anything I could get involved in, soccer, gymnastics, swimming, baseball, everything. But that really had nothing to do with me becoming a group fitness instructor whatsoever. I grew up in Sydney. I went to university. I got a science degree. I worked in industrial chemistry for a few years in Sydney.
Wow.
And then I went traveling around. There you go.
Yeah, no.
Interesting fact number one.
Yes.
Wouldn't have picked me for being an industrial chemist, would you?
No, not at all.
Yeah, and that was out in Bankstown in Sydney, of all places.
Okay. Yep.
But that's probably where the journey started, really, because I was actually racing motorcycles at the time as well, and was having a bit of issue with I'm racing road bikes, that is, road motorbikes, which is out on racetracks and so on. And I was coming off the back end of race days really sore and struggling. And so I was sort of advised to go to a gym and start doing some workouts to sort of get a bit stronger core strength and so on. And so I joined a gym literally around the corner from where I was working at the time in Padstow. I joined a Fitness First club there and started doing a few classes. And that's sort of where I first saw what was going on.
Yep.
And interestingly enough, I do tell this story these days when I am at initial modules and so on. I remember going to the club and doing a few workouts early on, and a friend of mine who went to that club as well, who was actually involved with motorcycle racing, said to me, "Why don't you come and do a cycling class with me?" And I went, "Oh yeah, okay, I'll see you." And I went to the gym one afternoon and I walked up to the back of the cycle studio, and there was a class already going, and I looked in the window. And it was pitch black. It was chock-a-block full. There's sort of flashing lights going, and this guy screaming at the top of his voice. And I looked in there and I went, "There's no way in the world I can do that. I'm going to get fit first, and then I might come and try a class," which is kind of ironic, 20 years later, being a trainer presenter for RPM and so on. But
yeah.
That's actually how I saw the whole process initially. And I actually went and jumped on treadmills and cross trainers and bikes and rollers and stuff for a couple of months, and did little by little and worked my way out until I had the confidence to actually walk in that room. So that was my first intro.
I was going to say, I agree with you in that. The first time you ever walk into or you're seeing a cycle class go on, whether it's RPM, cycle, sprint, trip, whatever it may be, the room is dark, the music's loud, someone's yelling and screaming, it's daunting, and you think to yourself, shit, I've got to get fit to go in there. Not, shit, if I go in there, I'll get fit. It's that complete opposite of, crap, okay, yeah, that's like the ultimate. I'll work up to that because, I want to go in there and do that one day. But little do we realise that just get in there. Get in there and enjoy it, because that's when the fun really begins on what's going on. And that as Les Mills used to say years ago, the rock concert on wheels, make it happen. You be part of it, and away you go.
That's right. And I think that's actually been handy, because later on, as I got into my career, I'd bump into people in the gym and say, come do an RPM class. And they're like, "Oh, I got to be fit to do that." So no, actually you don't. Yep. You don't. You just come in, jump on. And you know what? The beauty of RPM is or any cycle programs, really, whatever you might be doing, is that you get on a bike, it's dark, no one else really cares what you're doing. You're in control of it. Just move your legs.
Yes.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Chuck
us anyway, a woo-hoo every now and then and we're happy.
Yeah, that's it. So that was my introduction to it. But then I really wasn't sort of happy with living in Sydney. It was too busy for me. It was a little bit, I didn't like the job I was in. It wasn't really my thing. And I packed up and went traveling around Australia for a year.
Wow.
So just floating around and living in the back of my ute and camping and working on farms and bits and pieces. So I traveled all over Australia for a year. I got to Perth and I decided I wanted to go back to uni and study to become a chiropractor. So that was just a process I'd been through while I was traveling. I decided that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I got to Perth and I had no money. So I wasn't even able to get back to Sydney. And so I thought, right, I'll settle down here and get a job for a little while. And I got a job as a concreter. So I was actually working as a concreter.
No way.
And
that's everything you've said so far. My brain is just going, what? Hey,
none of this is making sense.
This isn't the Ian that I know. What? Hey, okay, I'm just going to say, Tony, shut up and listen.
Yeah. So I sort of got a job as a concreter, and I thought, right, I'll earn a few bucks over the year. I'll apply to go to uni next year. And at that point in time, I only thought that you could study chiro in Sydney at Macquarie University or down in Melbourne at RMIT. So I looked into those two, and I, as the year went on, I actually found out through a random situation that they'd started a course in Perth only 2 years before. And so I thought, all right, I'll apply here as well. So I did. I applied to all three, and turns out I got in Sydney and I got in Perth. So then I had to make a decision. I thought, right, at that point in time, Perth was really cheap to live in. I was living right next to the beach. It was a really good lifestyle, easy to get around, no traffic.
Nice.
Thought, right, I'll stay here. And then I went, right, I'm going to have to earn some money. I've got no idea how I'm going to support myself going to uni full time. And I was doing a few classes at the local club at the time, and I went, you know what? I reckon I can do that. So I went and spoke to the group fitness manager at the club that I was going to and said, how do you go about doing that? She goes, oh, we got to do this training and you do this, that, and the other, and you'll learn about this much a class. I went, right. And I've sort of done the thumbs, and I've gone, if I can do about 10 or 12 classes a week, done. So I went off and I went off and while I was still working as a concreter, I did my Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness so that I could also do a bit of personal training. And then locked myself into the next body pump training and the next RPM training, and off I went. So I literally became a group business instructor so that I could earn money. That was it.
I love that. That's perfect.
There's nothing about being inspirational. There's nothing about I'm sporty, so I think that I'd be good at it. It was nothing about somebody came up to me and said, you'll be a good instructor. It was just, I need money.
Yeah.
I can do that in the morning and the afternoon and go to uni during the day.
Oh, that's perfect. That's
how it started out.
So unique at the same time. That I haven't heard that one yet, and I love the fact that you were living out of the back of a ute for a while. That's mate, you can't get any more Aussie than that. That is fantastic.
It was good, and you sleep outside under the stars every night, and it was brilliant. I loved it traveling around Australia. I worked on a cattle station up in Northern Territory that was, I don't know, a couple of million acres. It was huge. Like you go for a drive across the station and back, and it'd take you the whole day.
No,
you fly around to the chopper chasing cattle and all sorts of stuff. It was good.
Wow. So how can I ask?
And I worked on a farm in Broome as well, and that nearly killed me.
Can I ask a silly question? How old were you when this was happening?
I left Sydney when I was 25, I think, 25 or 26, okay. 25.
Yep.
I landed
even then. That's a big thing to take on as a 25-year-old. To go, you know what? I'm off. I'm gonna go exploring and do this. There's me and my ute, and away.
Yeah, and I think I was lost, to be honest. I was lost in Sydney. I was in a job where I earned money, and really the only reason I continued to go back was because that money was paying for me to go racing motorcycles. That was it. Yeah. And I sort of thought, so I'm dragging myself out of bed every day, battling it through traffic. Really it's not where I want to be. Yeah. And I just went, well, if you stay here, it's going to continue this way. So do something different. And I went, right, well, and I don't really know where I want to be or what I want to do. So I'm just going to go and do whatever I want to do for a while. I literally decked out my ute with a bit of a canopy on the back and set up a camp kitchen in it, did a couple of bits and pieces, and got in the car and drove out of Sydney. I didn't even know where I was going.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you've landed in a pretty good place. Let's be honest. Perth is, if I wasn't living in Wollongong. I'm pretty sure that Perth would be where I'd like to be. Watching the sun sizzle as it hits the sand instead of, coming up on the other side over here.
Yeah, that's right. Sunsets over the beaches.
Yes, that's just, that in itself is just hello. But in saying that, nothing beats a sunrise, or does it? No, for me, nothing beats a sunrise, although I'm pretty sure you'll say, Tone, shut up. A sunset is, yeah.
No. I agree because so my family sort of comes from two parts of New South Wales. My mum comes from just a couple of kilometres away from where you live, down in Fig Tree in Wollongong.
Yep.
And my dad comes from up the north coast of New South Wales, a little town called Kempsey, which is where Slim Dusty comes from.
Yep.
But my dad spent a lot of his youth out in a little town called Southwest Rocks, which is pretty much smack bang halfway between Sydney and Brisbane.
Yes.
And my parents, basically, as soon as my brothers and I finished school, they just moved back up there and they live up there. So we also spent a lot of our youth up there, and they live about a couple hundred metres from the beach. So I've seen plenty of sunrises out there surfing, watching the sunrise. So I get it. And then now I get to see the sunset over the ocean as well. So
love it.
Best of both worlds.
Love it. So it's a silly, cheeky question. How long did you stay in your ute for when you were in Perth before you actually got some proper accommodation?
Well, there's probably some interesting stories about that. So when I got to Perth, I actually stayed in the backpackers for about a week. In that week, I managed to find myself a job concreting.
Yep.
And I found myself a little apartment to live in, which was 150 metres off the beach in Scarborough.
Oh.
And get this is part of the reason I decided to stay in Perth. So 2-bedroom apartment, fully furnished. It was an old place on top of a hill, second story. So I was on the top of this little 2-story building. Northwest facing windows. Walk in with my clothes, $160 a week.
No.
$160 a week. And I actually was, because there was 2 bedrooms, there was another guy that I'd sort of met when I was traveling, who was traveling around Australia and needed a place to stay for a while and just got a job in Perth. So we shared this 2-bedroom apartment at $80 a week. Fully furnished, kitchen, fridges, lounges, TV, the lot.
How old are you again? What decade was this in?
So this is a crazy bit. So and this is where I say that there's some stories in that. So this was in 2004, and that was pretty much going rate for a little apartment down in Scarborough or anywhere in Perth, really, at that point in time. It was that cheap. And so this is where, when I started making the decisions on where I was going to go to uni and live for the next 5 years while I was studying, I needed somewhere that was cheap. And Sydney was nothing like that. And I'd be living out somewhere near Macquarie University.
Yeah.
Whereas in Perth, it was literally that cheap. $80 a week. I had a house with everything in it, just, and off you go.
Mate, I completely understand why you stayed. Jesus.
Yeah, that's right. And great weather and easy to get around and everything else. And also I then, I went and did my training and bits and pieces, and I got work, and the club that I was working in, a couple of clubs were not far away. And so it was a brilliant mix. However, then we had this little thing that people over East may have never heard of Western Australia until it was the mining boom.
Yes.
Right. And so in about 2006, 2007, there was a real big boom in mining, and everybody moved to WA, and all of a sudden prices for rentals went from $160 a week to $600 a week. And poor old little uni student me, I actually spent a fair bit of time. I couldn't tell you exactly how long, basically living in my ute again out the back of the gym. But here's the brilliant thing about being a group fitness instructor. And the gym I was working at, I did a bit of work on the gym floor as well. So I had a key to get in and out, because I'd often open in the morning at 5:30. So people would turn up to the gym and they'd see my car there and go, "Oh yeah, he's come to work in the morning." So in the morning I could get up and go in and I could have a shower or whatever.
I could do everything before. Yeah.
I'd go and use the kitchen and I'd do my food prep and whatever. I'd go off to uni for the day. I'd come back in the evening and I'd teach a class or work in the gym for a bit and then have a shower and clean up and then go and sleep out in the car again.
Oh mate, that's.
So I actually spent a little bit of time homeless and just living out the back of the gym or at uni for a while there, because I did end up without a home and couldn't get into one for a while there.
Yeah.
and then eventually managed to get a place to live in and back in the rental market again. But it was pretty tricky there for a while, and that was just because of the mining boom.
Yeah, Jesus, I'm still stuck back there on the $80 each a week is oh my God. I mean, I think there was
isn't it?
one stage in Wollongong. Yeah, I'm talking about 1997, 1998. That there was a 3-bedroom apartment that I shared with two other people, about 150 meters from North Wollongong Beach. It was only $75 a week in rent, but that was 1997.
25 years ago, yeah.
Shut up. I just had to read.
Well, I think that as well. But 2004 is a while ago now, and
true.
Things have changed, but it was at that tipping point. And you also got to remember, if that was the price in New South Wales in the 90s, we do live in what they call Western Australia, otherwise known as wait a while, and we're sort of behind the timeline. Whatever happens over east, it's not
takes a while to
3
cross.
hours. It's more like 3 decades.
Yeah. Takes a while to get across the Nullarbor and to you guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So anyway, that's sort of how I ended up in group fitness. It was totally, I needed a job, and you know what? It served an amazing purpose through university. 5 years at uni, and we used to do probably 35 to 40 hours a week on campus.
Yep.
But I was able to teach a class in the morning, go to uni all day, teach a class in the evening, a couple of classes on the weekend, and brilliant.
Yeah.
It really was quite good. It worked out well. And, it keeps you, it's a good distraction from study. It keeps you fit.
Yep.
It wakes you up, gets you going. So it was actually a brilliant move in hindsight. And I think that if I had planned it that way, it probably wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah, true. This is the Group X podcast. RPM was your first group fitness class or program that you were trained in?
No, actually Pump was.
Okay.
RPM was actually what I enjoyed. I actually participated in both classes, but I really enjoyed the cycling stuff. I really enjoyed RPM. And I did a couple of freestyle cycle classes at the gym that I was going to at the time, and really enjoyed all that stuff. But it just so happened that when I was going to do it, here's another economical decision, right? Going to be a group fitness instructor. Enjoy RPM, great. So I'll do that. Tick that box. What else can I do? Which one's got the most classes on the timetable? I'll do body pump.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So I thought, right, I'll teach body pump and RPM because there's lots on the timetable. There's a good chance I can get classes.
Yeah.
Take it from there. And body pump actually came up as the first training that was available, and I did that. So that was in January in 2005, and then I did RPM about, I think it was late March or early April. So 3 months later, I did RPM training.
That's very quick.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, and it was a matter of trying to get them in so that I could start getting classes from work while I was at uni as well.
Yeah.
I was a little bit lucky because I already had a industrial chemistry degree from back in the day. I managed to get out of about half of my subject load in the first year of chiro because it's a science-based degree. So I got out of things like basic maths, chemistry, physics, statistics, which I'd already done before.
Yep.
So I had a half load. So I was able to spend a lot of time just focusing on becoming an instructor, getting classes and building myself up in that way.
Brilliant.
But yeah, so I did 2 programs in a matter of 3 months and got stuck into it.
Who was your initial module training for Pump?
Justine, was it Justine Hewitt? Maybe Justine. Her name was Justina, I seem to remember. I think she was over here, and you know what? She was a trainer, and then she did it for about a year after I finished, and then she disappeared. I think she moved down south. She sort of up and finished off. She was a trainer and presenter in WA based. Okay. And so, I think it was Justine.
The only Justine that I recall is Justine Spitala, but I don't think you're referring to her.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't Juzzy. No.
Okay.
So yeah, that was. I could be wrong, but that was 18 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, you're probably going to ask me next who was my trainer for RPM.
Who was?
And I'll tell you that his name was Andrew, but I don't know what his last name was. And maybe it was me in the time that I was training stuff. He actually came over for a couple of quarterly workshops, and he did my training. He was from Queensland, and I believe he was in the army. So maybe you might know better. So we're talking early 2000s. He was based in Queensland somewhere. Anyway, he did my training. He'd done a couple of quarterly workshops around that time. He'd flown over to WA and done them, and then disappeared. I never saw him again.
Wow.
So maybe
Mate,
maybe I have an effect on my trainers that I scare them all away.
Don't do any more training, okay?
No.
You are not allowed to do
No.
another IMT where you're attending. You can do it when you're facilitating, but if you
Running the show.
yeah, or if
Yeah.
there's any trainers and presenters
Yeah.
out there that want to give up, here's your opportunity. Get Ian to come and do your class.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, Andrew was great, but then I don't know, maybe he had work commitments or stuff that went on in life that he finished up around that time as well. So, and he was brilliant. I really enjoyed his training.
So back then, was it 2 days, 3 days?
Remember.
What was the training module you did?
So pump was 3 days. It was Saturday, Sunday, one weekend, and then you went back Sunday the following weekend.
Yep.
So it was only over 2 weeks, and RPM was only 2 days.
Okay.
So it was just the Saturday, Sunday, and done.
Yep.
And I seem to remember with RPM, I was so excited. I was Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday afternoon, I was up on the bike with someone at the gym shadowing and teaching them the track that I taught on the weekend. Deadly serious.
Wow.
A Monday night.
Wow. No, look, I at least waited until the Wednesday before. I think it was Wednesday before I was allowed. I don't think the GFM of the club was like, Tony, no, not yet. I know you've got the passion for it, but mate, just let it settle for a couple of days, and then we'll get you to come and wow. How did you?
But it's something that I do encourage trainees to do is to, I mean, not necessarily getting up there the very next day, but to get immersed in it relatively quickly. So within that next week, you need to be up on stage with someone else shadowing, even if you're just riding the whole class, even if you're just participating but being up on stage in some way, to start to continue the process on, because you do hear of people who do their training, they go, I'll do it in a couple of weeks, I got this on and I got that on, and then it never happens. And to be honest, and this is something that a few people know about me, but I'm actually body attacker trained as well.
I had no idea about that one either. Here we go. Yep. Now, so after you did your body attack training, who resigned then? Or who disappeared?
Tanya Savon. I think she did it for a little bit longer. No, I was teaching for a couple of years, and then one of the club GFM said, because I'd participated in a few body attack classes. I liked it, I enjoyed it. I was only in my 20s. I could do it then, and it wasn't a problem. And one of the GFM said, we need more instructors, and would you be interested? And I thought, that probably would fit in within my regime. And so I went and did the training, and classic case, it was actually about 3 or 4 weeks before we had end of semester uni exams, and I just went, I can't go off and add extra stuff to my routine at the moment. As soon as uni's over, I'll get in and start shadowing and doing a few tracks and whatnot. And I got through my exams, and literally a day or two after I finished my last exam, I was called by someone who I'd known through the fitness industry who said, I've got a job for you, working on a mine site on the weekends, running a gym. And I went, okay, let's talk.
Wow.
And because mining was getting so big over here at the time, and so I went and had a chat, and there's a mine site which is about 150, 140, maybe a bit less, 140 k's outside of Perth. And they had a lady running the gym Monday to Friday, but she didn't want to work weekends. So I ended up going down there weekends and working every weekend at mine site, which is great because you make really good money.
Yeah.
And sort of worked in around everything else I was doing. And so as a result, I never ended up following through with my body attack training, and I've never taught a class.
Right. I'm going to set you a goal. Yes. So by the end of 2022, now we're in March at the moment. So March when we're recording this, I should say. So okay. By the end of this chat, I'll have a goal for you, and it's not about will you accept it. You will accept it.
No pressure from your wife either.
No, none. Let's see how this. Yeah. Anyway, I'll park that. My brain's going to go down that path. Have a think about it.
Good.
But
probably shouldn't have told you that.
No, you shouldn't have. But I'm glad you did. So, talk to me about your first initial module training you did, and going into it. What were you expecting? What did you expect when you rocked up to that first day?
I think that I was naive but quietly confident.
Yep.
naive looking back looking back on it, I thought, this is no worries. I can do this. I go do body pump classes and it's all under control. I reckon I could do that.
Yep.
And so I went into it and it was far more structured than I thought it would have been. You kind of think, oh yeah, they'll give me some music. I know that you get music and you get some choreography and I'll just learn it and off I'll go. And then you sort of, the first thing you walk in there is you walk in there and they go, we've got 5 key elements. I'm like, what the hell? And then they go, right, the first thing we're going to talk about is choreography. I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. And then they go on to technique and you kind of go, what? There's ways, okay, yeah,
Yep.
I'd always been quite coordinated. So when I look at somebody on a stage, pick up a bar and do something, I can just do it because I'm quite good at looking and mimicking.
Yep.
But then I didn't think, some people learn by listening, some by looking, some by hearing. It depends on who you are.
Yep.
And so all of a sudden there's a technique. Okay, so we're going to have to spend half the day learning how to do this stuff properly. All right. And then from there it was then coaching and like coaching. I thought it just said what you do, so it was really, really quite structured. And so all of a sudden your brain gets blown. You watch somebody up there teaching, you go, I reckon I could do that.
Yep.
And then you go, and there's all these bits to it. And you go, well, that all makes sense, but I never really thought that there'd be that much to it.
Yeah.
And so at the back end of it, I think that I was a little more, I almost walked away going, I don't know if I can do this, or I walked in going, this is going to be easy.
Yep.
And that became really much more apparent. I went back for the second week and I did okay at the training. I got through and I was passed to go and teach and whatnot.
Yep.
And then when I first got up on stage and taught a track, and I got about maybe 30 seconds into the squat track and had no idea, couldn't remember anything, had this mental blank, and then taught the rest of the track completely ad lib. And to make that even worse, so I taught my very first sort of shadowing, doing a couple of tracks with, for anyone who was in and around that time, I was teaching at Lord's, which is quite a prominent gym over here in WA, and I was teaching with a guy named Jeff Richards, who was actually a body pumping, body combat presenter at the time.
Yes.
And I've got up on stage. He's like, oh, you can do the squat track and this track. And I've got it in 30 seconds into it and complete brain fade and had no idea what I was doing for the rest of the track. And he's kind of sat me down afterwards and going, okay, we're going to have to go back to the start and just work on the choreography. I'm like, yeah, I think we do. I think I went in quietly confident and came out a little bit shocked. And then, I just worked at it, but it certainly was harder than I thought it was going to be to teach.
Yep.
I could do the moves. I could understand what was going on. Technically, I was okay. But bringing that together with remembering it, listening to the music, and then getting the coaching out was quite a step.
Yeah. Hey, I want to ask you a question about Jeff standing next to you. Did he follow your choreography and the awesomeness that it was, or was he trying to get you back on track?
To be honest, I think he tried to for a little bit, and then you know what I think he did. I actually think that, and it may not have been in that first class. I taught a few classes with him. He actually got to the point where he kind of went, right, I'm going to put my bar down and go out into the crowd and just watch you to see how you're going, as if to say, I've got no idea what you're doing and I'm going to get lost and look like an idiot. I'm not going to let you make me look like an idiot, so I'm going to pretend like I'm watching you from
coaching.
The other side. I think that
give you some feedback.
Go,
awesome.
I can give you some feedback later.
Yeah.
So I think that he probably tried to, but that first class was quite a mess.
Yep.
And then after that, I think that I put more time into it and certainly improved from there. But it was funny, and I think it is that. You get two different types of people coming into initial modules. You do get people that walk in and go, this is going to be easy. I've been doing classes for years. Won't be a problem. And then you get the people who walk in and go, I'm really, really nervous. I don't know if I can do this. I'm not confident.
Yep.
And often those people who walk in and go, I'm not confident, they work really hard to do well. And the people that walk in and go, I can do this.
Yep.
You have to have a moment of, you know what? No, you can't. Not yet.
That realization hits
and
home.
Eventually
and
you get there, and it's quite it's a good lesson to learn. So it was.
Yeah. Mate, I haven't shared this with anybody, but at my first class, I was given the lunge track, and pretty much the same thing happened. Yep. We did the entire track on one leg. Now I'm going to walk away from that comment and just leave that alone.
Yeah. You wouldn't be the only person that's done it, Tony. So.
Yeah, no, that was just. I remember walking off afterwards, and I was just like, yeah. And I won't mention the person that was next to me. She was professional in everything she did and just followed along with what I was doing. And then afterwards was like, did you forget something? I was like, shut up. Yes, I did.
We worked our right leg and then we worked our other right leg.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, we did the instructor right leg and then we did the participant right leg. So we did the right. Yeah. Too much fun.
Dee.
This is the Group X podcast. So I love hearing those stories of your people's first classes because it's raw, but it's real. I think anyone that sort of goes through initial module training, gets past, and then gets out there, and unless you've taught before, and as an example, you've said you've done RPM, you did pump, and then you did RPM, and you did attack. If you went to do attack and you've got your knowledge around everything else going on, your attack class might be great. But that first class that you go and teach, the first time you've ever done something, I think we've all got it. It's you are shitting yourself before you get up on stage. You are that deer in headlights when you're up there, and you're thinking chorey. I've got chorey. I can't even remember seeing people in front of me. I just remembered getting through the chorey. But I even screwed that up in the fact that we just did one leg and not the other. I think everyone's got a story like that though, and I think it's nice to share it because we're. Even you are a trainer, you're a presenter, that kind of stuff, but you're still a human. Yep.
Yeah, human, absolutely.
Yeah, we've all been.
And the pump was probably a good one too because in RPM, in some ways you can get away with missing little bits and pieces in the choreography because you're just pedaling, right?
Yeah.
So you might not be pedaling quite at the right pace, so you might stand up at the wrong time or sit at the wrong time, but you can really get through that as long as you keep moving.
Yeah.
But with pump, when you say 10 to go and then the music stops, or you go 3, 2, 1, and then the music's still pumping and you're standing there going, I don't really know what happened.
There's another 32 counts. Oh shit! Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it becomes really, really obvious.
Yeah.
But that stuff makes you stronger because it forces you to go and practice, and it sort of
character building at the same time.
Makes it real.
Yes.
I remember my first RPM class teaching the whole thing on my own. So, you go through the process of teaching with others and somebody else is controlling stereos and lighting and everything else. And I had a pretty good grasp of it. And I had this class that I was probably lucky. I can't remember what time it was. I want to say it was like a Friday 9:30 class or something. And it was at Lord's, and they'd only actually had bikes for, no, you know what? It was lunchtime. It was a 12:30 class, a lunchtime class. And I've turned up to teach. It was my very first chance to teach an entire class on my own. Go in, you're the instructor, off you go. And 5 people turned up. Yep. So, in some ways, a blessing in disguise. And, in 2005, we were teaching with CDs, right? So, none of this digital stuff.
Yep.
And I had my CD and I put in the CD player and got to track 3. I did track 1, okay, track 2, okay, going real, track 3, got 3 seconds in, skipped and just kept going, did it. I went, So I'm like, okay, we're just going to stop and I'll take it out and I'll give it a bit of a wipe down and put it back in.
Yep.
Did it. And I went, okay. There's another instructor downstairs who worked in customer relations and she had a gear. So I'm just going to run down and grab a CD. I came back up, I put that in. And I ran down to see her and she says, I don't have it with me. So I was like, back up. We tried again. I skipped it forward a little bit. Halfway through the track, did it. I went, right, we're not doing track 3, straight to track 4.
Yeah, pass, move on. I've tried. Yep, sorry guys. Yep.
Because, everyone who's ever had a career of any sort in group fitness knows that at some stage you're going to have to deal with a microphone that doesn't work, a stereo that breaks, lighting's not working, whatever. Things break down. But to have the music go in your very first class on your own was like, right, baptism of fire, sunshine, here you go. Yes. And I've actually got a guy who's now a patient of mine in my clinic, and he was in that class. And every now and then he reminds me, he goes, I remember your first class and the music didn't work.
How did the rest of it go though? How did from track 4 through to 9 go?
It actually went okay. It went really quite well. Went okay. There was no more issues. And I can't remember what I did. I think I went and spoke to another group fitness manager or someone who also taught RPM and ended up getting another CD burnt because scratch damage. I don't know. I think I tried in other CD players and it was fine, but that one didn't. So I ended up getting spares and
I was so
back
grateful.
in the days of CDs, it was a risk.
Oh, so grateful. It's if you didn't, back when I first started teaching, I didn't have a CD burner, so I couldn't burn CDs. So once you had 5 or 6 and you wanted to do a mix, you were pressing stop at the end of that one, changing, putting that one in, and you'd I've just fallen on the floor. God, I've got to get off the bike. I remember that, and then all of a sudden, I got the iPods came out, and so I was able to put whatever releases on the iPod, and then you were able to make the release quickly. So then I only ever used the CD once. The CD was able to be burnt or put onto my computer.
On your iTunes or whatever.
Uploaded into iTunes, and away you went, and then it just sort of sat in the cupboard forevermore, gathering dust as they do. And I'm pretty sure underneath the house now, I've still got, because I went back and bought all the early ones, so I've got from RPM 1 all the way through to when I stopped teaching at 62. So they're all sitting in there.
Wow.
In plastic tubs under the house, trying to stay away from the mold and all that kind of stuff that grows. But it was soon as I was able to put them on the iPod, that was when it became so much easier to on the fly. You just wanted to make sure that when you were recording,
click them, change them.
When you're recording, you didn't want to bump your laptop because then it'd skip and you just
you skip and then you haven't.
I've got to do it again.
What RPM release did you train on?
23.
Okay.
So it was just as we went from
on 26, so it was just after you.
Yeah. So 23 was CD, but it was VHS. So we hadn't moved over to DVD at that stage, and I think 24. I'm pretty sure 24 had just gone to DVD at that stage. Has moved away from.
I think for like 2 releases, they gave the option to choose.
Yes. Yeah.
When I started that year in 2005, everything was DVD and CD.
Yeah.
So that was probably around that era, I think Body Pump was about 52 and then RPM 26.
Yep. I can't remember. Pump might have been 56 for me. For some reason sounds familiar, but CNC Music Factory, going to make you sweat, going to make you move, and Susan Renata.
Susan Renata.
I remember that track so well. And then Mike doing the, I got push-ups and biceps in my tracks, and is it Body Rockers? I can't think of what the track is. Anyway, that'll come back to me later. Doesn't really matter. But
I seem to remember going to my first quarterly workshops for Body Pump, and I reckon 50, maybe 50. So I trained on 52. It would have been probably 53. And there was that song, Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy.
Yes.
And I distinctly remember Jeff Richards, speaking of Jeff again, up on stage wearing a cowboy hat during that particular track down at the stadium down there in Perth. Yeah, I do remember that. Oh dear.
Some great memories.
Yeah.
Hey, what track did you get for RPM?
Track 6. What was it called? Okay, so here's something you need to know about me. I have a condition. So I've made this condition up, but I'm sure it's real, right? So
you had me serious for a second, going, dude, you're about to. This is like the second biggest thing.
I'm not dying. It's okay. No, so and I sort of came across this a few years back. So there's a condition where I'm just trying to remember what it's called, where people, you can describe something, and like if I said to you, close your eyes and just imagine walking up a nice green grassy hill, and on top of the hill there's an apple tree, and hanging down on the side towards you is a bright red apple just ready to pick and eat, right? You could picture what it looks like, right? Yep. So there's a condition where people can't form pictures in their mind. They can't see images. If you describe stuff, they often can't dream. They have dreams in funny ways because they can't create images.
Yep.
So I have a similar situation, but it's around music. And what I call it is music anesthesia, because that's just the name I came up with.
Okay.
And this actually frustrates my wife no end. If you ask me for the name of the song, a name of a song, I can't tell you.
Yep.
If you ask me how a song goes, I have no idea. if I've just taught a class and I walk out and you say, what did I do for track 3? I go, I don't know. Well, what was it called? I don't know. How does it go? I don't know. Once the music starts and I hear it, everything's there in my head. I know the lyrics. I know how it goes, how it plays, like choreography to it and everything. But I cannot for the life of me remember music. And so I can walk out of a class and have no idea what I've just done. The beauty of this condition is every class is amazing because I just get all this new music all the time. Right?
Fantastic. You don't know what's about to happen. This is great.
I've got no idea. And I'll be going off to class and Carrie will say to me, what are you doing for track 3 today? I go, I don't know. She goes, how can you not know? I said, well, when it starts, I'll know.
Yeah.
I can tell you what the choreography is. I can tell you that we'll be sitting for 30 seconds and then we add a gear and then we stand up to standing climb for 30 seconds. And so I have this ability. The way that I learn what I'm doing is I learn choreography and I know it really intimately one step after the other.
Yep.
But when that has a problem, I'll tell you where this has a real problem. I got the choreography in my head. If my iPod happens to go on mix, the track will start and I'll start teaching to it. And I go, this doesn't quite seem right, but I don't know why. And there'll be people in the class going, wrong track. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't really know what's going on.
I love that.
It's quite interesting. So I don't remember music at all. I don't remember songs. I don't remember lyrics. I don't remember the name of them. So you asked me what I did. I did track 6. But I don't know what it's called and I can't remember how it goes. But if I put it on, I could probably tell you exactly how it goes.
Yeah. Wow. No, I've this weird thing where I'll learn choreo by watching the release, watching the masterclass, without looking at my notes. So I'll watch it first and go, yep, cool. I get the vibe, get the feel, get the journey, get the story, get all that kind of stuff. Then I'll just listen to the music for the next 3 or 4 days. So I've got the music in my head, so you can map it out in my head and know where it's going. Then I'll listen to it and read the choreo once.
Yep.
Then I'll go.
That's all good.
It sticks. Now, weirdly enough, I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, like what you're saying. I wouldn't be able to say, you know what, if I went back to RPM 15 and did track 7, Blade, the original version of Blade, not the one that was done recently, but the old one. Right now, I can't tell you what's going to happen. But as soon as I hit play, that music comes to me. I'll know exactly where we are at any one point in time. And you could pull out, as up myself as this sounds, you could pull out the choreo notes and look at it and go, he's got it.
Right.
Yeah. It's some reason it just sticks in there. If I watch it and I do it in that way, I don't know what it is, but it happens to stay in my head. And that's a scary thing when you think I have 62 releases of RPM in my head.
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
And I haven't taught in 5 years. It's like, you know what, I could probably get on the bike now and do it and still
put on a track and off you go.
And awake. Wow. Yeah.
It's interesting though. And I always talk about this when I run training modules, and I encourage people who are in the module who already teach other programs and whatnot to explain to the group of people, particularly if you've got brand new instructors coming to the module, how they learn it. And you always get different stories. And the answer that comes out of it, or the lesson to come out of it, is that there's no right or wrong way to learn choreography.
Yes.
And to put it to the music and to remember it.
Yep.
But what I encourage people to do is try and then try something different and try something different. I reckon in the first 5 years, I tried so many different ways until I found my formula. And now I can learn a release pretty quickly.
Yep.
And I spend very little time learning the choreography and spend a lot of time identifying what I want to get out of it, what we want the class to get out of it, how you want the feel to come across, the emotions of it and how it goes, and very little time on the choreography. But it takes a few years of trying lots of different ways, whether it's watch the video, then listen to the music and then look at the notes, or study the notes, or write the notes out, or do it in front of the video with the notes in front of you, or there's so many different ways to do it. And there's no right or wrong way. Whatever way gets it into your head, that's the way you should do it.
Yep. So I remember the first night getting track 5 for RPM 23, which is faster, harder scooter. And taking over, I was living with a flatmate at the time, and she's like, didn't quite understand the whole thing, but got pissed off with me because I sat into the lounge room and took over the video recorder
Stereo.
and watched, because the first I was like, okay, I've got to get this, and I watched it about, I'm going to say somewhere between 10 to 15 times, this one track over.
And it would have been Mike McSweeney.
Yeah.
With his sunnies on his head and his bandana.
Yep, the whole thing. And on the old Star Trek bikes that they used to use back then, I don't even think they'd moved over to the classic body bikes. I think it was still the old Star Trek. And she got the shits with me big time because she's like, I'm sick of hearing this song. Like, can't you get it by now? I couldn't. So I ended up leaving the lounge room and then going into my bedroom and listening to the CD on the Discman that I had just to get it through. And I remember, it was so different to how I ended up putting it all together. As you said, right from the beginning, it was, okay, this is what I think I've got to do. I've got to sit here and watch, and I was trying to script, and I'd scripted, 5 minutes and 32 seconds worth of of everything that I was going to say at every single point in time, and went above and beyond because I thought if I script the whole lot, my brain's only going to remember a bit of it. So at least something will come out, where if I don't script something, I'm just going to be screaming at them and telling them what to do, and nothing's going to happen. So it was,
and you're taught in those initial modules early on to do some scripting.
Yep.
But talking to people down the track, I find that a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people don't script necessarily everything they're going to say.
Yep.
And long term, I encourage people to script ideas, focuses, goals for a track, and then you can build around it. But you have to teach for a while and build up that vocabulary before you can do that sort of stuff. So it's interesting, isn't it? I reckon I probably scripted out. I probably had a whole list of things that I was going to say in that first body pump track. I got the biceps track, and then the week later when I went back, I had to do the lunge track, I think.
Yep.
But I had a full list of everything that I was going to say, and I don't know how much came out. Probably not much.
No, I think it's good. Some of it landed in my brain, and I think some of it I still remember. And I think even now, if I was to get up and try and teach a class, I think the same words that I would have said for those tracks at those particular times would probably come back out again. Even though it has been a long time since I've taught, I think it's still like that autopilot.
Locked in the brain there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I used to say this here. Yeah, say it again. And it all flow through. This is the Group X podcast. Mate, how did the opportunity come up for you to become a trainer and presenter? How did that eventuate?
So in those years, we're talking, 2005, I started teaching classes, and there was no follow-up sort of advanced trainings. There was no advanced instructor module 1 or 2, or there was no any other things that went on other than quarterly workshops. So for the first 5 years, I'd turn up to the workshops. You might get a little bit of an ed session, and I'd go off and teach. And the trainer who was over here at the time, the trainer and presenter for RPM, was Robin, and she'd sort of taken it on probably only the training after mine. It was very shortly after I'd started training, and I'd known her, I'd taught with her, I'd done a few bits and pieces with her because we were talking in similar clubs, and she sort of mentioned a few times to me, would you be interested in becoming a presenter for RPM, because we need more people. And I was at uni, full on, and I was working at mine sites on the weekends. And I said to her, she approached me probably 2 or 3 times with the same question. And every time I said, oh, no, look, I'm too busy. I don't have time.
Yeah.
And I, to be honest, I didn't really understand what it was, other than quarterly workshops, the presenter getting up there, and didn't really think about the trainings and so on. But honestly, I didn't have time. I was really quite committed. And I said to her, look, maybe once I finish uni, I might consider it. But it's not valid at the moment. And anyway, I finished uni 2009. 2010, I was doing a bit of locum work, and I was working on mine sites, doing bits and pieces still. And around about quarter 3, so it would have been September, October, maybe, it was somewhere there. AIM 1 had just come out. They just started running AIM 1s around the country.
Yep.
And they put one on the Friday before they had workshops on the Saturday and Sunday over that weekend.
Yep.
And so I jumped at the opportunity. I thought, great, something to upskill me, to help me after 5 years of teaching. I really need something to, keep me going and push me on. And And it was interesting because the module was booked out full 16 or 18 people that could fit in.
Yep.
And it was all the people in Perth who were the go-getters, the real interested in growing and getting better, the people you'd always see at workshops, the people who were known around the area to be the good instructors.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was a really, really great workshop. And we had this training guy come over, and so one of the people who worked at Lord's, where I did a lot of my instructing, was someone that probably a few people have heard of. She's probably WA's greatest ever export within the fitness industry, and that's a young lady by the name of Kylie Gates.
Never heard of her.
Nah, some people have, you know.
Who?
So yeah, I'd said that I was going, and Gatesy kind of went, "Oh, the guy that's coming over, he's the bomb. He's the man with RPM. He's the latest thing, and he's really good, and it'll be great training." I said, "Oh, great, cool." So,
but I wasn't coming over.
This guy walks in.
I wasn't.
No. It wasn't. And it was Lee Smith. So Lee had come over, and at this point in time, he had just filmed RPM 49, I think.
Yep.
Maybe he hadn't. He was about to go over, perhaps. It was around that time. Yep. And so nobody knew of him other than that he was a trainer. He'd been running training over in Sydney and up and down the East Coast and so on, but he hadn't been to WA before. So he came over, and great, we got this guy. He's the biggest and the best, and he's about to go over and do a filming, and everyone's great. So he came over and ran this training on the Friday, and it was great. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. I learnt lots. The next day we were at workshops, and I walked into the workshop, and he was running it with another presenter from over East, I think. And anyway, just before the class, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, we're looking for a presenter and trainer over here because we need another person on board. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Sure, why not? I'm sure I'd be interested." And he said, "Okay, after class, I'll come and get some details from you, and I'll get Meg to contact you." I said, "No worries." And so we chatted after class, and he said, got my details and passed them on to Meg. And the next day, Meg gave me a call and said, "Oh, can you record a class and send it over?" And it basically went from there. And it turns out that Robin had basically told them she was finishing up.
Yep.
So she had young family and business stuff going on, all sorts of stuff. And she just said, "It's too much for me. I need to move on." And it's a long way to send people back and forth to WA. So they wanted somebody local. And so I had a chat to Meg, and next thing you know, things were on. And it was interesting because I sent some stuff over to her, and she said, "I'll get back to you with some feedback and we'll have a chat and whatnot." I thought, okay, so that's cool. And then about a week later, as they used to send them out, a CD and DVD pack turns up in the mail for the next quarter. And a thing saying, "You'll be presenting on this day." And I went, "Oh, that's cool." So I then jumped on the phone and said, "Hey, Meg, I just got this thing come through." And she goes, "Yeah, we're going to use you next quarter." I said, "Oh, that's good. I'll be overseas. I won't be here." I said,
Brilliant.
"Oh, okay."
Shit.
So we'll work on that. So yeah, that's how it came about. And it's I think that it was very just lucky and right place, right time. Perhaps the process these days is much better because you get an opportunity to look at different people. You get a number of people come in. You can identify who's the best person, and it goes through a process. And it's a much more fair situation. Whereas back then they kind of went, "Oh, if you see someone, let me know, and we'll grab a hold of them."
Yep.
So I think it was lucky, but
it's evolved.
I've been. That's right.
I was talking to Vic Bellino recently, and she's one of the earlier episodes, and we were saying the same sort of thing. How much the program has actually, or all programs have evolved from the first releases that come out to where they are now. And I think even the training has evolved over time, but it has to as well. It can't stay of what it was when we experienced it back in the early 2000s. If they did that type of training now, I just don't think it'd land with the demographic that are coming through that are being instructors at the moment. So I think so. And I went on to become I did a couple of training modules, sat in on a couple of initial modules, one with Kiz from down in Victoria, and then one with Lee. So that was over a period of probably only 3 or 4 months, and then the next one I was on and running training. Brilliant.
I think that I was a little bit lucky because at this point in time, I'd actually, while I was at uni, I'd designed a manual handling training program for a mining company, and I'd spent probably the better part of 6 or 8 months traveling all over the country running training programs.
Presenting and training.
So I had the experience of working in an adult training space of public speaking in that sort of manner. So I had a lot of experience around it. So I was probably able to move into that role quite quickly.
A lot faster. Yeah.
Just had to pick up on all the detail and off I went.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different from some people who become trainers and they've spent, 12 months or so working.
Yes.
And going through the process of learning how to do that, because it's different. It's very different to being a group fitness instructor.
Yes.
Yes, you're up in front of people, but the process is quite different of being in a classroom and teaching versus teaching a group fitness class.
Yeah.
So I moved into it pretty quickly, and I was actually very blessed because I was the only trainer over here. And it was in the days when we were having a lot of training modules. We're having a lot of training modules with full or close to full, 16 people. And I would be running probably 4 a year minimum in WA. And then we had a few issues with trainers over east. So I started traveling back and forth quite often to South Australia and to Victoria.
Yep.
And, there was times there when I was running maybe 8 to 10 modules a year or more, so one a month at least. And you basically were, once a month you're off for a full weekend of training. So you get good at it quick when you're doing a lot like that, and a lot of big ones.
Yep.
So I was quite lucky. It's that situation of you learn to do something and get immersed in it, and you really own it. You get better at it quickly.
Yep.
So I was quite lucky in that regard.
What do you prefer, training or presenting?
I don't know that it's an interesting comparison to make. So presenting is great fun. I really enjoy it because you're turning up to teach a class and then you're just chatting before and after.
Yep.
And spending time with people and so on. Training it's a big weekend and it's a big couple of days. Like it really is. I walk out at the end of the Saturday and I literally have a bite to eat and I crash.
Yep.
And then you get up and you do it all again on Sunday. And by the end of the weekend, you're knackered.
Yep.
And I do remember, I can think of times when I was doing lots and you're like, oh, another module this weekend. And you'd kind of go, oh, I don't know if I can do it. And then you get an hour or two into it and you're into it and you've met new people and you walk away at the end of the day and you go, that was brilliant. I really loved it. I learned more about different people. You always learn. I walk away and have different things to say in the class I teach on Monday, because you just learn things from people.
Yeah.
So it's a great situation to spend time with people who are already instructors and learning a new program, to people who are brand new to the whole process. And it is, I really enjoy running training, but I also really enjoy the presenting because you just get to get up there and make your own version of that release as well.
Yep.
And be able to put your own little accents on it and create your own version of that release of RPM and go, hey, you're going to get a master class that you're going to watch on screen. Then you can get it and see it my way.
Yep. That
gives you 2 different options. And then you can go and learn it and do it your way.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, it's a really great way to be yourself.
Yep.
So they both have their pros. So it's a difficult comparison to make. I enjoy both. I really do enjoy both.
Look, I asked the question, but also know that it's like asking, if you're an adult that's a father that has 2 kids, who's your favorite? Well, really that one, but that one. I love them both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
that's right.
No, look, I appreciate that because it's honest as well. It shows your integrity for what you do. Yeah, and I appreciate that. And I'm pretty sure virtually anyone that knows you, that's come across you, would understand that as well and goes, you know what? It's a different role you play in both, but you still you love them both for what they are in that way. So
and it's funny because I started running training modules and presenting. It must have been early 2011, late 2010, early 2011, and I started running the programs. I was basically staying in WA because I just did RPM, so I wasn't traveling for workshops or anything. And then we do these big, get-togethers with Les Mills where we get together and we'd have all these upskills and whatnot, and you'd travel over east and go somewhere. And I went to one in Queensland and then went to another one in New Zealand, and we went to one in Melbourne. And it was probably 2 or 3 of those in, and Lee had taken over as the head of the program for RPM.
Yep.
And he'd made a comment to say, the guys who are the trainers in RPM, you guys know intimately the nuts and bolts of everything that's done, the basics of it, and you're doing the basics really well. You guys that are just presenters, you don't have to worry about all those nuts and bolts. You should be spending a lot more time working on the high end stuff. And I'm sort of listening to this conversation, and I stopped and I went, hang on, are you telling me that there's people who aren't trainers, they're just presenters? And I'd been doing the job for like 5 years, right? And Lee's kind of going, yeah, not everyone's a trainer. And I went, what? So,
yep.
So, because when I heard, would you be interested in being a trainer presenter? It's almost like it's one word, trainer presenter.
Trainer presenter, yep.
And that's the job role.
Yes.
You can't just be a trainer or a presenter. You can't just be a presenter. And all of a sudden, it's clicked, the penny's dropped, and I've gone, oh, wow, I've actually got 2 jobs here, not one. Yeah. And then things started to come together a little bit more. It's actually an interesting insight there.
Yeah.
So it's just me and my naivety. I just get in and I can do that job. Off you go.
I'm going to say I wouldn't class it naivety at all. It's more you were asked to do a job. Yep. And the assumption being, or the understanding was that I'm a trainer presenter, so I'm going to do the training and I also do presenting. There's no one said to you, oh, do you want to be a presenter? Because if they'd said that,
that's right,
it would have been a very different conversation, different understanding straight away. But it's, as you said, trainer and presenter. It's the same as the series, trainer and presenter series. It is what it is. But there's those that are. I think these days it's most of you guys are trainers and presenters. I don't think there's many presenters only. No, they're still around.
There's still a fair few presenters, and that's because you don't need as many people running the training.
Yes.
And in fact, if everyone was a trainer presenter, you'd do one training program every couple of years.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, because there might be. So we got 20 of us presenting RPM.
Yep.
And out of that, I'd have to check exactly, but there's probably about 6.
Yep.
Or 7 who are trainers as well, and actively training.
Yep.
So you generally you need one trainer in each state.
Yep.
Generally.
Yep.
And sometimes there's a little bit of crossover. But you need 2 or 3 presenters.
Yes.
So there are a lot out there who are presenters but not running the training. So it's an interesting thing, and it never crossed my mind until several years into the game, and then it was a penny dropped in, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah. So your role that you hold at the moment, what is it called?
So I'm now the team coach for RPM.
Yep.
And then I'm also running training and presenting in RPM, and training and presenting for sprint.
Okay. So your the role that you've got now, how did that eventuate? How did you get into that role?
So the team coach role is that's evolved. So initially it was somebody who was the head program coach.
Okay. Yep.
And that took into account running, organising the people who are running the training, monitoring what's going on within training, upskilling, and also the presenting side of things. Over the years, we then changed probably 6 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, to taking the training side of it and getting a couple of people to run that, because training is quite specialised, and to have a couple of people running all the training gives you consistency across the different programs.
Yes.
And it keeps it a little bit more consistent through there. But the individual programs need someone to mentor the people who are presenting.
Yep.
And sort of keep them up to date with what's going on within the program, and help them grow as a presenter, as an RPM instructor and presenter, and so on. And so Lee Smith took on that job, and he did that. And the goal is basically to keep an eye on everyone, how they're going as presenting, and upskill them. So to watch them and mentor them in their presenting.
Yep.
And then so Lee ran that for RPM for several years. And then when he sort of moved on from the whole training and presenting and even teaching now,
yep.
I then stepped into that role and took over that position from him.
Okay.
And that would have come about through discussions between Lee, myself, looking at who was on the team, who else was available to do it, and discussions with the guys who are running it from the training side of things from Canberra as well.
Yeah.
So I get the opportunity now to sort of oversee, and we do a lot of preparation running up to workshops where we have Zoom calls and conversations. We put together ed sessions. We chat with the other presenters, and we come up with how we're going to create a focus for the release and things that we need to work on as far as what we're trying to. We might be seeing a lot of stuff out in clubland with people instructing where they need to up the game on a certain area of teaching. And so we go, right, we're going to focus on that within the workshops. And so it's really about helping to guide the program from a presenter level and help to upskill them. So everybody, doesn't matter whether you've just come out of training and you're, just shadowing and teaching one track, or if you're training or being a presenter, or even at presenting on masterclass level in New Zealand. There's always things you can work on, and if you've got someone there to work with, a mentor or somebody to help you through it, that's how you really grow and improve over time. So that's my job, is dealing with the other 19 RPM presenters around Australia. And I've been very lucky, because I've had this this fantastic guy that turned up out of New South Wales to do an AIM 1 on a Friday afternoon in Perth way back when in
Don't
Lee
talk
Smith.
him up too much, mate. Don't talk him up too much. Come on.
Well, I think having a mentor is really great when you have a mentor who is, probably after Glenn Ostergaard, probably one of the most popular, most famous RPM presenters of all time in Lee Smith. And I went to great extent to get him as my mentor as well. I went as far as to find him a wife, to get him to move to Western Australia. So that
brilliant. I love this story.
But I've been so lucky to have Lee here, and he lives nearby. He's taught at the same club as me. And mentoring can take different roles. Some people need you to be in the club and riding with them and working with them. A lot of my mentoring with Lee has actually been sitting around drinking coffee. Or a good glass of wine or whatever. But sitting around and just talking concepts and coming up with ideas and talking through things that work and don't work, and what we could try to get to create change, to head things in a certain direction. And, we sit down and have these amazing conversations for hours and hours, and we're both so passionate about it that you can sit down and have conversations about it for hours. And then you take that conversation and it brews, and you go off to class and you start trying it, and you see how it changes things and heads down that track. So that's worked really well for me. Some people, I find that it's better if we sit down and look at a video of them and you talk through what they're doing and what they're saying and how they're doing it and so on. Some people, it's better if you actually sit in there in a class with them and talk after class. So everybody's different, but mentoring for me has been just having that person there to sit down and talk with. So I've been very lucky, and I now try to take a lot of what I've learned from Lee and be able to share that with others as well, because it's helped me so much.
Great. This is the Group X podcast. Mate, I'm going to ask a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it all up. But one of the last ones I want to ask you is if there's any bit of feedback that you would want to pass on to instructors that are wanting to follow in your footsteps and do what you've done. And I'm not talking about living in the back of your ute. I'm talking about with RPM.
Camping out the back of the gym.
Opening up early, going to have a shower. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about following your footsteps within the trainer-presenter journey and to where you are now. What bit of feedback would you give anyone looking to do that? What bit of advice, I should say?
Okay, so I think about this regularly when I get people coming up to me and saying, "What do I got to do to become a presenter? I want to be a presenter." And you get that at sort of AIM 2 levels and now the advanced instructor modules. So in the first 5 years I was teaching, I had no aspirations at all to be, a trainer or presenter. I really didn't understand the whole process and wasn't interested in that. I just wanted to earn a buck. But what I learned was the better I was at teaching, the busier the classes were, the more classes I got, the better potential I had to earn money and pay rent. And so the one thing that I found really helped me early on was every time I taught a class, and I'm talking from the first time I got up and the CD didn't work to even today, I walk out of a class and I asked myself, what did I do that worked really well?
Yep.
And what did I do where I tried something and it clearly didn't land or it didn't work or people didn't seem to follow or whatever. And I take those things that worked well and I go, right, I'm going to use that and I'm going to put that in my toolkit and I know that it works. So when I need to bring it out, I can throw it out there and it's going to get the class going. And what didn't work, and stop and think about, why didn't it work? What was it about that didn't land? Did I say it in the wrong way? Did I say it at the wrong time? Did I not engage people before I said it? Was I trying to overpower the music? Was I saying too much? Was I saying too little at that particular time? So then you can go, okay, if I can identify why it didn't work, I can try something different next time. And then I can go through the same process, what worked, what didn't work, and so on. So that was where a lot of my upskilling came through in the first 5 years. Yep. Self-assess every single class. What did you do well? What didn't you do well? Put that one in your toolkit. Have a go at doing something different with that one consciously.
Yep.
And that really will help you grow as an instructor. And, you can get good technically, riding a bike, lifting weights, whatever we want. You can get good technically. You can know the choreography 100%. But coaching is something that changes with every class based on the people that you're with, the room that you're in, the time of day, everything. So
true.
That's the stuff that keeps growing and growing and growing. And so always focusing on the coaching, what I did, what I could have done that could have been better. Be honest.
Yep.
Particularly with RPM, I find that a lot of in the early days, the motivational side of stuff came from just honestly working hard. Don't go in there and fluff around. Do it properly.
Yep.
And if you do it properly, the right stuff comes out. There are probably a couple of things I'd sort of encourage early on.
Yeah.
When it comes to becoming a trainer and presenter, just get really good at what you do.
Yep.
And don't focus on the goal of becoming a presenter. So if people turn up to modules, advanced training modules and so on, advanced instructor modules, and they go, right, you go, what are you here for? What do you want? What's your goal? And they go, I want to be a presenter. And I go, okay, great. They go, what have I got to do to become a presenter? I said, you know what you got to do? You got to come to this workshop. You got to learn lots and you got to go and put it into practice and get better.
Yep.
And they're like, yeah, but how do I become a presenter? I said, you get better at what you do. You get better than everybody else.
Yep.
And then things will happen.
Yep.
So you just got to, you've really got to keep working at it and get good at it. And if you're honestly good at it,
yep,
the right things will happen.
Will come. Yeah.
Yep. It's not something that you do for status.
Yep.
I know some people think that, you do it for fame and fortune and, want to be on a masterclass with Glenn Ostergaard and those sorts of things. But it's interesting when you look back at the reason I initially got into group fitness. I needed a job.
Yep.
Great, off you go. So
yep,
when you become a group fitness instructor, what I see is that whatever your reason is for becoming a group fitness instructor, it's valid.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because if it gives you enough to go off, do a 2-day or now a 3-day module to turn up to try to go through the process, then your reason is valid. Whether you want to be the next superstar on a masterclass or you just want to get in and share group fitness with the people in your local club or because you need a job, it's valid.
Yep.
What I see further down the track, becoming trainers and presenters and getting to the high level of things is that your reason, your why, the reason that you do it, it may be valid for you at the time, but the reason that you do it will determine whether you do it for 1 quarter, 1 year, or 1 decade,
yep,
or 1 lifetime.
Yep.
So if you're in it because you really enjoy sharing and helping people upskill, and you know that you've got skills that can help people do this stuff, and then they can go out and become better instructors and help the people in their clubs and have that effect, then you'll be in the game for a long time.
Yep.
If you do it because I want to be up on stage and everyone will think I'm great, then you might last 6 months, a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 or 4 years, but you probably end up going, oh, this is way too much hard work
yep,
for that hour of glory I get on stage once every 3 months.
Yep.
And so you'll disappear.
Yep.
So, I think that if you do it because you love it, you get good at it, and you want to do it because for an honest reason that you want to help other people be good at it, that's what gets you to that level of being a trainer and presenter. Because let me tell you, there is a hell of a lot of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
There is a hell of a lot of hours. And it's hard work, and there's tough days, and there's days that are fantastic. But there's more of the tough, hard work days than there is the poster boy days.
Yep.
So you've got to really deep down inside enjoy educating people and sharing the group fitness and the love of group fitness. And that's what will get you to that level of becoming a trainer or a presenter and a trainer, or a trainer presenter, or whatever job it is you end up taking on board. But and I think so. Like I say, any reason that you want to become a group fitness instructor is valid.
Yeah.
What'll keep you going for long term?
Yeah.
That sort of depends a little bit on your reasoning long term. And
Yeah.
I can tell you, I do not do this now because I need a job and I've got to pay the rent.
You do it for fame.
And
I say that
the reason
joking.
changed a lot. Yeah, I know. The reason changed a lot when I finished uni, and a lot of people said, "Oh, you don't need to do that anymore." And I went, "Yeah, but I love it."
Yes.
And I love spending time with people, and I love the classes that I teach. And you know what happened? I went from teaching 10 or 12 classes a week down to 5 or 6.
Yep.
The ones that worked for me and the ones I really loved, because I wasn't doing it for the cash anymore. It wasn't about a job. I had a home. I had a roof over my head.
No, I mean, thank you for that honesty and direct answer as well, mate. I appreciate it, because it's what, if I sum up what you just said, it's about, they need to be honest and real with themselves. Yeah, if you are in it for the show pony status, then as you said, you're not going to last long. If you're in it because you actually love doing what you're doing, and you want to be able to help people, and you want to be able to help others do what you do and what you have a passion and a drive for, then that's going to help you down that path of doing what you want to do. So, yeah, thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
And you speak to, you look back to some of the great trainers and presenters from around the place, the names that pop into your head for different people, and they've done it for a long time. There very few of them are flash in the pan people there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you haven't heard of them until they've finally got on a DVD, and you go, "Oh wow, that person's amazing. Where have they come from?" It's like they've been running training and presenting stuff for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So
their opportunity to shine in that area just comes up because of circumstance or whatever it may be.
For whatever reason. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Hey, last question.
Yep.
What does the future hold for Iain Hennessy?
What does the future hold? Look, I'm still enjoying training, presenting, and I'm really taking on board this role as a team coach. So there's nothing's going to change there.
Yep.
For the short term. I'll probably sit in that team coach role. The latest job is sort of looking over 2 years, and then maybe it'll be time to hand that on to someone else. And the idea is always, as a trainer or a mentor, is to get other people to be as good as you or better than you, right? So you can hand on the baton and they can continue the process. So, maybe a couple of years in that, and, eventually I'll get to the point where there'll be other things going on in life and I'll pull back from the training and presenting role. There'll be younger people who are ready to do it and take on that role. I don't think that I'm going to give up instructing in the near future. I think that I'll probably continue teaching classes until, I have to wheel myself in and I can't get upstairs because it's got stairs to get to the cycle studio and I'm in a wheelchair, I remember talking to Kylie Gates a few years back and we were doing an education session, a generic education session on instructor longevity. And at the time, Gates was probably in her late 40s, and she sort of said, "Oh, I'm nearly 50, and I'm going to keep teaching when I'm 50." And I said, "Well, my goal is to be teaching when I'm into my 60s."
Yep. And
she goes, "You know what? Me too. I'm going to be into my 60s." And I mean, you look at Gates, and she's no reason to stop, no reason to finish. She's still going strong, and so the future holds probably at least another couple of years of training and presenting, and then we'll see what happens. And I'll be happy to hand the baton on to the next thing. But I'll continue teaching into the future for as far as I can see. I think I love it. I really enjoy it. So.
Awesome. Love it, mate. Thank you so much. Thank you so much again for coming on the show and having a chat with me and sharing your journey from the back of your ute through to the program coach that you are at the moment, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, and thank you.
No worries. I thank you for the opportunity, and hope a few people out there might even learn a few things from what I've had to say.